Alright, so today we're going to be looking at The Emperor's Children, Part 2, by the Oculus Imperia. As always, I'm going to be leaving a link to the original video and channel down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure they check them out. We finally got enough time to record a video. It's crazy weeks. So, in any case, with this Legion, it really seemed like they were trying to be the perfect type of Legion in every sense and form and manner. And being the third, and also the fact that they ended up saving the actual Emperor alongside with the Custodes during the some kind of battle. I think it was like for Proxima. I heard Proxima thrown around a lot, although I could be completely wrong. That's just what I remember hearing. So then after that, they also got the Aquila, which I saw in the comments that they said this was the only Legion who actually had it, and now I think it's pretty much on everybody's symbol now, just to represent that they're still loyal to the Emperor. And also a little bit of talk on the actual Astronomicon. I know now from reading the comments that it's not naturally considered like a light source. It does give off a little bit of light, but it's not like the sun, essentially. I did see at one part, though, when I was going back through it to try to remember kind of what was going on, is that he did say that the Thunder Warriors humbled them, which is what kind of also made them end up joining with the Emperor. I'm assuming during the whole very earlier days of kind of when everything was going on. And they actually fought a lot with other types of units, specifically the Imperial Guard, which I thought was pretty cool. And lastly, that last little section, which started talking about the gene seed and how there was like some kind of virus going on, and that eventually somehow the Emperor just fixed it. But unfortunately for the Third Legion, they ended up having the whole entire gene seed turn into a black mush. I remember him saying. And that the only real way to get them, because they said that they were going at a snail's pace as far as creating more. It's a very long process. And was it that the only way they can really get more quickly, at least, was to take them from the ones who died. So they were practically pretty much almost at extinct, essentially. So that's a quick recap. As far as scheduling going, I finally got a big chunk of what I need to do for my internship. I know if a lot of you have been seeing this recently, I haven't been uploading too often. I mean, I'm trying where I can't fit some time, like right now. But I finally got the big chunk of that internship finished. Now it's all about just the second part of it. And then after that, should be pretty much solid for the rest of the term. I graduate, finally start working as a personal trainer, and then all that good jazz. I have a lot more time to actually focus on actual YouTube, because I really do miss it when I don't get a chance to actually record, specifically with Warhammer in this case, and also just seeing like what other videos people have seen, whether it's SCPs, military related, anything else related. Somebody mentioned about watching a meme, military fails type thing, which I'm more than down for. I haven't seen too many for the past 2 years, really, ever since I got out. But that's enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and get to the actual video. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe. It really does help me a lot. Hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I do upload. Now uploading whenever I can. Somebody made a comment about that too. It turned into every day or every evening to every morning, so you could enjoy it in the evening. And now it's like, hey, you get one whenever I have time. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, also I've restored the defaults on the actual mic, so it should be pretty loud now, which I actually had to make sure there's not a whole lot of external noise. Someone's been whistling like crazy for hours outside, so hopefully that doesn't interfere. But let's go.
Upon his vanishing from the Emperor's laboratories, the Primarch Fulgrim's gestation capsule had come to the resource-poor mining world known as Chemos, a miserable,
Okay, well, his vanishing from the laboratory. So, I think, did he say capsule? Because is he? I thought they really. I mean, unless they didn't have the Primarch yet, right? But then that wouldn't make sense. But I mean, I'm getting confused right now. And it said upon his vanishing. So, what was he kidnapped, or did he somehow just get sent away? Oh God, I think literally less than 20 seconds in, I'm really confused. I mean, hopefully he spent a little more on it, just because it's kind of thrown me off, because I thought the Primarch was already there from the beginning.
Forgiving planet warmed only by a small binary star, surrounded by a thick nebula dust cloud, making the world a place of little warmth and perpetual twilight. Chemos had been settled by humanity millennia before, during the Dark Age of technology.
All right, real quick, I am aware people have been commenting the Dark Age of technology, and as far as with the traitor legions and all that, I'm trying to balance it out with the ones who were loyalists and the ones who were traitors. After that, I'm going to just kind of go randomly into different subjects. The Dark Age of technology is going to be one about the Titans from Luton is going to be another one, but I'm going to do that for a little while, and then eventually go into the Imperial Guard to try to get to know them a little more personally, kind of like with the Space Marines. So it is coming. Just it's going to take a little bit of time.
Its role had been a mining world, and it had borne the long dark of the Age of Strife through enforced, exacting austerity. The resources of the planet, strained even during those thousands of years, were reaching their limit. The people were barely producing enough food to feed themselves. The entirety of the Chemosian people toiled every hour of every day, maintaining the vapor mines and synthesizers, struggling to meet quotas they knew were simply to fill their bellies with the most meager of nutritional scraps. Recreation was unknown, a frivolous thing, sacrificed upon the altar of necessary survival. As a simple mining colony, the loss of the great human stellar realm millennia before had condemned the planet to a slow and painful starvation. Fulgrim's capsule was discovered by the caretakers, the planetary regime's police force, who had observed the fiery trail the pod tore across the sky from the fortress factory of Kallax. Recovering the infant, they were so...
You just said infant, so he was a child. So he wasn't even the Primarch, unless he was going to be the one destined to become the Primarch, or one of the Primarchs, and that something just happened, he got sent away or vanished, right? Okay, so he's still a child, or infant. He's a baby, essentially.
Stunned by his angelic beauty, they begged the executives of Kallax to spare his life, as orphans of Chemos were quickly put to death and recycled, deemed an undue strain upon planetary resources. The executives relented, charging one of the caretakers who had discovered him to take Fulgrim as his ward. The child's growth, like all of his brothers, was rapid, and his effect upon...
Okay, so he really... Okay, so yes, he was already going to be a Primarch, but obviously some shady stuff happened. And essentially from what I just heard is that they kept him alive because he was hot, I guess, or beautiful, as what they were saying. Okay, and now he's going to become one of the caretakers' ward. So, okay.
Upon his adopted home profound. As soon as he was able to wield mining tools, he took to the mines, a child amongst adults, outperforming all those alongside him with seeming ease. With his quotas easily filled, Fulgrim turned his mind to the workings of Chemos' technology, improving all the systems of Kallax incrementally until, at age 15, he had become one of the executives himself, and the fortress factory's output had skyrocketed. Not in these days a jealous being, Fulgrim dispatched emissaries to the remaining Chemosian holdouts, seeing solidarity in adversity as the only solution to the world's ills. His men brought with him all the knowledge Kallax could now offer, asking only in return an exchange of data to better help those across the entire world. Long-thought-lost mining settlements were rediscovered, repaired, and reopened. The slow death of the world was arrested, and, for the first time in centuries, Chemos began to produce a surplus.
Okay, this guy is like literally a protagonist, and it can be. This guy could be a protagonist in any story. He's really reminding me of like an anime character right now. I mean, obviously his capabilities are way different than everyone else, but he just kind of comes in and kind of just fixes everything. I mean, it wasn't too much detail on how he did it, but he did. Sounds like a pretty good guy.
Fulgrim, now universally acknowledged as the planet's ruler, fostered the return of things long thought lost: leisure, art, and culture. Music now began to echo through the rusted hallways of the mining cities. Galleries were opened to display paintings and works of sculpture. Fulgrim himself penned some of the first dramatic theatre to be put before the public in millennia.
Also, this is really kind of reminding me of like a Renaissance type feel. I always love when there's like a little bit of actual history from like, that ends up relating into the story. I don't know. It's just me though.
It was not long after this ascendancy that light plied the skies of Chemos for the first time since Fulgrim's arrival. To the shock of the citizens of Calax, a flight of Stormbird dropships in stunning purple, bearing the golden emblem of an ancient avian, landed before the fortress factory. Fulgrim himself, deep genetic memory stirred by the sight, met with the head of the city's caretakers in an emergency meeting. Emerging at the end of an honor guard of 3rd Legion Astartes was the Emperor himself, come to reunite his lost son with his legion. Fulgrim needed no bidding, no compulsion. He immediately dropped to his knees before his father. Traveling with his gene sire to Terra, Fulgrim was presented to his own assembled sons. It was, however, a legion in name only. Barely 200 of the 3rd Legion remained, standing unbroken but so terribly diminished before their Primarch. Undeterred, Fulgrim reaffirmed what his sons always knew they were, that, despite their tragedies, they remained the Emperor's chosen, his heralds, his warriors, his children. It was this latter title that, as is well known, would remain. The 3rd Legion were ever the Emperor's children.
Alright, so I hope I'm remembering this accurately, incorrectly. So the primary and the reason why they were so strong is that they had a type of genetic, the genetic material of the Emperor, right? So and when he said that he just kind of immediately knew who he was and took the knee, I was like, okay. So even as a baby, he knew, or maybe it was just kind of something automatic in his mind that's just like, hey, I remember this guy or this guy, that the Emperor,
Fulgrim, despite being eager to begin active military service, was nonetheless pragmatic, knowing that only his own genetic stock would be used to rebuild his legion. He also was aware that 200 warriors was barely an efficacious force in its own right, Astartes are not. Seeing the need to nurture the Emperor's children's recovery, while still utilizing them and their newfound Primarch, the Emperor requested that the Primarch Horus Lupercal mentor his brother Fulgrim. Over a standard Terran decade,
I can kind of see where this is going to go now, as far as them turning traitor.
The 3rd Legion and 16th Legion Luna Wolves fought at each other's side, and the bonds forged in battle between the two Primarchs, contradictory though they may have been in nature and demeanor, became unbreakable. Indeed, as unalike as their respective Primarchs were in character, but both equal in skill, both legions complemented each other to a perfect degree. While the 16th were brutally direct, the 3rd were subtle and lithe. By the time the Emperor's children had replenished their numbers to an acceptable degree, the bonds they had forged with the Luna Wolves had become nigh unbreakable, even in the face of direst, darkest treachery, as would be demonstrated in the darker years to come. Over the course of this time with the 16th, Fulgrim, through his exposure to the works of the Imperium, and in keeping with his own personality and that of his legion, began to become ever more possessed with the desire to embody the perfection he felt the Emperor's honor of his legion demanded. While in his...
See, I knew perfection had to deal with it, just because of me being called literally the Emperor's children, kind of like his favorite, at least at this time.
Taking the form of wishing to embody the best that humanity could offer to to become shining paragons worthy of the Palatine Aquila, over time, this striving for perfection became unto an obsession for the Phoenician, as the Primarch came to be known. The Third Legion pursued all things with a total commitment and single-mindedness. They would never accept that their skills could be exceeded, and, when this was demonstrated otherwise, would apply themselves to mastery of said skill with utter focus, allowing the desire for perfection to consume them completely until their goal was achieved. This obsession...
So really, I mean, obviously with this obsession, you can kind of see also where it might go, but also at least taking their losses kind of like champs from what I'm hearing, and then learning from it, and then now making whatever that slight weakness was in comparison a strength, essentially.
Extended beyond military concerns into all aspects of human existence. The Third Primarch himself was said to have been a being of stunning beauty, on par with the beatific splendor of his angelic brother Sanguinius of the Ninth Legion Blood Angels. Those of Fulgrim's Legion sought to emulate their Primarch in all things, commissioning or crafting only the finest decorations on their power armor and weapons. Aesthetic affectations, such as lacquered paintings and fine fur cloaks, were common amongst those of the Third, from line Astartes up to the Legion's elite Phoenix Guard Terminator squads, again seeking to emulate the fashion of their gene sire. As the crusade progressed, the obsessions of the Third slowly transformed from what could be seen as admirable efforts at self-improvement and development into something cancerous, warped. Ultimately, the import the Legion placed upon the skills of others led them to believe that the only true way to measure personal achievement was by comparing oneself against another. Personal pride was no longer enough for many within the Third. One's virtues could only be seen as superior if they exceeded those of everyone else. Accolades won by cousins from other legions became personal slights, insults against those of the Third. Relentless need for validation bred twisted jealousies, and worse, disdain for those they believed they excelled. No victory, no achievement, no artistic expression could be enough for them.
So really one of those moments where, I mean, it's can happen to kind of anybody in everyday life, right? Where you start doing really good and you're really, I guess, competitive, right? As they seem to be. And, you know, hey, if you see a buddy excelling in something, it's like, hey, you know, hey, good job, good stuff, right? I almost said, I almost cursed again. I'm trying not to curse too much. I don't think YouTube likes it very much, but then when most people try to say essentially is, hey man, do the best you can, do all that, but then secretly think, hey, do your best so long as it isn't better than what I can do. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting the feeling right here. Because the moment you start to do better, I mean, you probably get made fun of depending on whatever it is. They start talking smack, whatever it is. But then once you get to just the level where they literally cannot talk any smack anymore, just because the evidence is there, right? And now it's all of a sudden, hey man, I know you can do it, right? Remember me? And it's like, okay. You know, I mean, I had it happen a lot more in the military, in my experience, where just a lot of moments where people like seeing you succeed, so long as it wasn't interfering or it wasn't passing them, right? So you can only be as good as I would want you to be, essentially, which isn't a good mindset. And it's obviously it's starting to transition them into like becoming traitorous.
All that had come before was base competence, another metric for them to measure themselves by. Exactly when the Emperor's children fell to the malign influences of the arch-enemy is unclear. Like their fellow damnable kin, it is likely that the process was simply a usurpation of their already degenerating character. For, as the ancient Terran maxim states, pride cometh before the fall, and there were none more prideful than the Phoenician and his sons. There are numerous and fragmentary records that, when combined, speak to the dark truth of the matter. The cleansing of the reptilian lair by the Third Legion a matter of no small amount of pride for them, is one such example. The ocean worlds of the Laren stellar volume were rich prizes for the crusade, and the Emperor's children saw the technologically advanced Xenos as a credible adversary to test their mettle upon. For the War Council had deemed their extermination a high-risk venture, best avoided in light of the Imperium's previous losses during the Rangdan xenocides. Fulgrim would not countenance such a thing, both in terms of permitting the continued existence of Xenos within the Imperium's borders, nor the implied slight that his legion could be bested upon the field of battle. A full account of the campaign will be detailed in a later record, but it should be noted that here, in the aftermath of the Purge, Fulgrim emerged from the Laren homeworld in possession of a sword of clearly Xenos provenance, a weapon which he seemed to favor consistently from that point until the Istvan atrocity. While each of the Emperor's sons were permitted certain eccentricities by virtue of their position, this was marked in that not only was the Phoenician wielding a Xenos weapon, but he did so in favor of the mighty weapon Fireblade, crafted by the hand of none other than Ferrus Manus, Primarch of the 10th Legion Iron Hands, and Fulgrim's closest brother beyond Horus Lupercal. In light of what has since transpired, it is all but certain, given the degenerate, serpentine nature of the lair, and material recovered from their worlds by Mechanicum xenobiologists, that these aliens were corrupted subjects of the powers of the warp, and the weapon, borne by one of the Emperor's own sons, was in fact infused with the essence of one of those warp creatures themselves. It would appear...
Okay, so that... Okay. Oh, alright, so... They went out to go take out some reptiles. I don't know, not a reptile in nature. Emerged with that sword. The sword was infused with chaos, right? Or I don't know which. I don't know if it released a specific one of the chaos gods, but I'm assuming that this is really close now to where Horus is going to eventually be out in open rebellion at some point, or like at least very close, maybe a couple of years worth, maybe. I don't know.
Here, at this point, that the fate of the Third Legion was all but sealed, as in seemingly all cases in those years of the Great Heresy, a Primarch's fate is inextricably linked to those of their gene coding. Other factors are likely significant in this regard, such as the closeness the Emperor's children shared with the now renamed Sons of Horus, allowing for the propagation of that legion's perfidious warrior lodges within the body of the Third. Certainly, Horus Lupercal was quick to leverage his closeness with Fulgrim in order to sway the already corrupted Phoenician to his side, pitting him against his brother Ferrus in doing so. Alas, a full account of all this must wait until a later date. Suffice it to say, as the days of the great betrayal grew closer, the Emperor's children began to spiral ever downwards. Their worst excesses of pride and hubris writ large upon their perfect purple armor, their sins barely hidden and striving to emerge. Once they were paragons. Soon they would be antithetical, the very antonym of all that had been good and righteous in humanity. Until such a time as I am bidden to commit the full atrocity of their fall to imperial record. Ave Imperator. Gloria in excelsis terra.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. Now, as far as I saw, there's the three big indicators, obviously, that he mentioned during the video, as far as what would cause them to eventually turn traitor. I mean, the first one really being the pride, being way too competitive with the guys who are already on the same team as you. And for the most part, I don't think they would want to, I guess, severely hurt you, right? To the point where, like, you can't even be in combat. But I mean, this happens a lot too, specifically in the Marine Corps from my own experience. I mean, you got people, for example, doing a little bit of grappling on the ground, a little bit of rolling, And the reason why we would do that instead of a whole lot of stand-up is no one's really going to get hurt. Because, I mean, maybe you throw a straight punch, right? And you accidentally hit someone a little too hard, it rocks their head, jumbles their fucking brain in their head. I just cursed again. YouTube doesn't like that. But when you're doing jiu-jitsu, right, or mixing in a little bit of wrestling, although we try to keep any type of like little sparring like that on the ground, at least one knee on the ground, to avoid any major injuries, because the moment something starts to hurt, all you got to do is tap out and then you guys can go again, right? Obviously most people at least would try to get very competitive, where you can tell they're really breathing hard and they're really using all their force right at the beginning, right? And you got a couple people, specifically those who were actually experienced in jiu-jitsu. Like myself, I mean, obviously I wasn't insanely experienced. I just had maybe a couple months worth, which allowed me to do pretty decent against people who didn't know what they were doing. Now, you put somebody who was, I don't even know the belt system, because I typically did it without gi. I guess the second rank of a belt could probably mess me up, right? But in any case, I was very passive in the way I would spar, and then that way try to keep everything cool, even have like a funny conversation during the actual rolling, just to avoid that feeling or that chance of anybody getting really pissed and genuinely trying to hurt you. Because then obviously you're going to defend yourself, right? So now he's got to get hurt. It's either you or him, essentially. Second one being when he actually ended up getting really close to Horus, became very close, and then later on that would end up being used by Horus, who very smart on his end, using that to get people onto his side, right? Now, the last one really being is that when I don't think he said for, I mean, obviously I would think it would be that for sure after he picked up that sword and started wanting to use that sword that was corrupted more than the other sword that was forged. I forgot who he said it was by. But it was a second to Horus, as far as like the ones he was closer with. I feel like that was kind of the last straw, and as he said that later on in another video, it's going to get into more the detail as just kind of what he's going to do, and it does not sound good. So that was a real thing I really wanted to mention, because at no point did I ever try to see like these guys, at least from how it was being told, like these guys are going to turn traitors. I'm wondering, like, they're going to have to get screwed over somehow. Something has got to happen, right, to drive them this way. Like, I was thinking about the Iron Warrior specifically, right? But turns out it's just bad circumstances, the whole thing about pride, and I didn't see that coming even. So I really like the way that Warhammer just keeps kind of throwing me in for a loop, and I'm just going, ugh. All right, so that's going to go ahead and do it for this video, though. Don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me a lot. Hit that dislike button if you didn't like it. Really helps me improve the channel. If you're curious to see what's coming up next, I got one more video in the description, which is a channel update, which is going to describe kind of how I'm going to change things up a little bit, just so that way I can get videos a little more faster out to you all, and also be able to do it in a sense where not everything is just immediately rushed, which I figured was kind of wrong on my end in the beginning, uploading like so consistently so much, and then obviously it just ended up crashing on me. But don't worry, I got a couple really good ideas. I've been taking ideas from people who've been commenting specifically with the audio recording and all that, but it's gonna make a lot of sense in the next video. So that's it. All right, bye.